After 3 years abroad on a top-secret mission, I finally returned to my homeland with permission granted. I came home filled with excitement, thinking I'd finally see my wife and mother again. But the moment I arrived, that joy was crushed. At the entrance of my house, my mother was crouched inside a small doghouse-like shelter. In front of her sat a metal basin. She was lying on the ground like a dog eating rotten food from it. A man stood nearby watching her with a mocking smile. "If you want someone to blame, blame your useless son. He died young and left you here to suffer alone." He raised his hand mid-sentence and slapped my mother across the face. My mother flinched but didn't say a word. She lowered her head and quickly swallowed the thinking, spoiled food. Furious, I stepped forward and kicked the man aside. Then I pulled my mother up, tears streaming down my face. I had risked my life for the country, thinking I was protecting the people I love. But this was how my mother had been treated in my absence, locked in a kennel, eating moldy scraps like she was some stray animal. Her eyes, once so warm, were now clouded and dull. She looked up at me but couldn't recognize me. "Boy, leave quickly," she said, trembling. "You hit Emily Prescott's secretary. She won't let you go." "Emily Prescott's secretary? He did this to you?" My voice shook with rage. "Just go," she said again, desperate. "They'll hurt you too. I know you mean well," she added, her voice breaking. "But it's useless. Ever since my son disappeared, she's been tormenting me. If I hadn't been waiting for him to come home, I would have ended it all long ago." Her words broke something inside me. I had trusted others to take care of her. I had believed my mother would live peacefully while I was away. But I was wrong. Behind me, the man I had kicked was getting back up. He wiped the blood from his mouth and glared at me. "You're dead," he spat. "You think you can touch me? Do you know who my boss is? She's the law around here. You mess with me, you dead." I looked at him, my anger cold now steady. Without a word, I took out my phone and called Emily. "Hello, who is this?" She answered, her voice flat and emotionless. "So you're the queen of the capital now?" I said coolly. There was a pause on the line, then she replied. "I don't know who you are, but if you're calling to threaten me, I'll find you, and when I do, no one will be able to save you." Her words cut deep. She didn't even recognize my voice. She hadn't saved my number in just 3 years. She had completely erased me from her life. I clenched the phone tighter, every last trace of patience gone. "I'm at your house right now," I said flatly. "You have 30 minutes, get back here immediately." There was silence, then panic bled into her voice. "You're at my house. What did you do to my secretary? You'd better not touch him. Stay right there. If anything happens to Tyler Morgan, I won't let you off the hook." On the other end of the phone, Emily's voice rang out with suppressed anger, and I laughed out coldly as I listened to Emily's words. She had long since forgotten the mountainous oaths she once made with me. I still remember that at that time when I left, she had once said to me that she would take good care of my mother and even promised that she would treat my mother as if she was her own mother. However, it never occurred to me that after only a few years since I left, she had already changed her heart. She even sat back and watched her own assistant bully my mom. At this moment, all the love I had for Emily had long since disappeared. I hung up the phone and looked at Tyler in front of me. At this moment, I couldn't wait to get him killed. At the same time, I also gave my leader a call. I questioned him all these years, said to take care of my mom. Is that how to take care of it? On the other end of the phone, the leader listened to me and was also completely frozen. "Jason, because you participated in a secret mission, we couldn't come out, but at that time, I had already asked people to take care of your family. I also didn't expect that they would do something like this." On the other end of the phone, the leader was equally furious. "Jason, don't worry, bullying and insulting a military family member, no matter who the other party is, I definitely won't be able to let it go. I'll send someone over right now." He hung up the phone angrily, and just as I put down the phone, I saw Tyler climbing up. He looked at me, his face full of gloom, staring at me viciously. "You're finished. You have no idea what my boss represents in the capital. Let me tell you, Miss Prescott, in the capital, that's the sky. No matter who it is. Whoever messes with Miss Prescott won't have a good ending. You wait for Miss Prescott to come back. At that time, I'll torture you." Tyler looked at me viciously, her eyes full of anger, and Mom was on the side listening to my words. Her face was full of tension as she said, "Young man, hurry up and go. I know you mean well, but boy, you really can't fight them. Mr. Morgan, please spare him, he's just trying to take care of me." Mom spoke out in Tyler's direction. I looked at Mom with a face full of heartache. Mom was already completely blind 3 years ago when I left. She could still vaguely see my outline, and at that time, the doctor had told me that as long as she was well taken care of, Mom's eyes would be able to recover. But 3 years have passed, and my mom's eyes not only didn't get better, but also got worse. At this moment, I realized how much my mom had been wronged in these 3 years. For Emily, all I had left at this moment was hatred. Tyler, on the other hand, looked at Mom's pleading appearance and laughed coldly as she spoke out. "You want to plead for him, then you will kneel down and beg me." Upon hearing this, Mom was ready to kneel down, but in the next second, she was pulled by me. At this moment, I had already burst into tears. "Mom, it's me, I'm back." I pulled my mom's hand and called out softly to her. Upon hearing my words, Mom froze, and in the next moment her palm stroked my cheek in panic. "Jason, is it really you? Jason, you're okay, you're finally back. They all said you were dead. I didn't believe them. My child, you're finally back." I listened to my mom's words, and at this moment my heart had long been like a knife. I panicked and helped my mom up. My eyes have long been filled with tears. "Mom, I'm back. Don't worry, I'm not leaving," I gently assured my mother. "Don't worry, Mom, I'm here now." But she gripped my arm tightly, her voice filled with fear. "Jason, you need to leave quickly. Emily isn't the same person she used to be. She's changed." Without waiting for a response, she added bitterly, "All she cares about now is that pretty boy." Hearing her words, my heart ached. I held her hand and said softly, "Don't worry, as long as I'm here, no one will hurt you." Just then, Tyler stepped forward, his eyes sharp and cold. "So you're Jason Whitaker," he sneered. "I thought you were dead." He glared at me with clear hatred. "I never expected you to actually come back." Then he smirked. "What do you think showing up now will make Emily change her mind?" He took a step closer and spoke with venom. "Let me tell you something, Emily is mine now. If you're smart, you'll sign the divorce papers, take your blind mother, and disappear." His tone grew more arrogant. "You think you still have A in her life? You're nothing now. She's far beyond your reach." I looked him in the eye, my voice calm but cold. "Whatever happens between me and Emily is none of your business." He let out a mocking laugh. "You really don't know, do you?" With a smug grin, he leaned in. "Emily is pregnant with my child." "That's right, she's mine now." I stared at him without flinching, my eyes frosty. He had no idea how deep the trouble he'd stepped into really was. As for Emily, I didn't feel like saying another word about her. The moment I saw how my mother had suffered, I knew Emily would have to pay for what she allowed to happen. Tyler continued, his tone full of threats. "I'm Emily's man now. She has powerful connections in high places. With just one word from her, you'll be finished. You should kneel down with your blind mother right now and bark like a dog, or I swear I'll make you regret it." I didn't move. My gaze never wavered, but my mother, terrified, tried to kneel. "I'll kneel. Please, just don't hurt my child." I quickly held her back and whispered, "Mom, don't be afraid. As long as I'm here, no one will lay a finger on you." Then I turned to Tyler, my voice sharp and steady. "Even if Emily herself comes, I'll make her pay for what she's done." A cold female voice suddenly echoed from the doorway. "Oh, you're going to make me pay." I turned and saw Emily marching in, surrounded by bodyguards. The moment her eyes met mine, she stopped in her tracks, stunned. Her belly was large, she was clearly pregnant. "Jason?" she asked, visibly shocked. "You're back." She instinctively placed a hand on her stomach, panic flickering across her face. But when she met my cold, emotionless eyes, she quickly regained her pride. Her tone turned sharp. "You still have the nerve to come back all these years you disappeared," she snapped. "If it weren't for me taking care of your mother, she would have died a long time ago." I let out a cold laugh. "This is what you call taking care of her?" I pointed straight at the doghouse where my mother had been crouched. Emily lowered her head, silent, but the guilt in her eyes said it all. Just then, Tyler jumped in. "Emily," he hit me the moment he showed up. "Look, I'm covered in bruises." He rushed to her side, grabbing her hand like a helpless victim. "You have to stand up for me." Emily's eyes instantly filled with concern. "Jason, how could you? You've gone too far. How dare you attack Tyler for no reason?" But as she yelled, I didn't even feel angry anymore. I was done with her. I only looked at her with the same icy stare. Seeing my expression, Emily faltered, but she quickly straightened up and snapped again. "Jason, just for laying a hand on Tyler, I could have you killed. Apologize to him now." She folded her arms. "And since you're back, let's just settle this. Sign the divorce papers." I looked at her calmly. "Divorce? Fine, but do you really think I'll just walk away because you say so?" Before she could reply, "Tyler what more do you want?" He spat. "Emily is being kind, and you're taking advantage of it. She should have crushed you the moment you walked in. Sign the papers and get lost." Then he turned to Emily with a confident smile. "Emily, why are you even wasting time on him? Once he's gone, we can finally be together." He added softly, "Think about our child." Emily's expression turned cold. She looked at me and said sharply, "Jason, sign the divorce papers now, take your mother and leave. If you don't, I won't be so polite next time." Then she turned to her men. "If he refuses, force him to sign." As soon as the words left her mouth, the bodyguards rushed toward me, but I didn't flinch. My expression only grew colder. They had know of the storm, they had just called upon themselves. Just as I was about to act, the villa's front door was kicked open. A group of armed men stormed inside. "What do you think you're doing?" someone shouted. Emily and Tyler froze in place, stunned. "Who let you in?" Emily screamed. The men didn't answer, instead they walked straight up to me. "General Whitaker," one of them said. "We've been sent here under direct orders." The armed men stood tall and unshaken, forming a protective wall around me and my mother. Their uniforms bore the insignia of the Special National Defense Corps, elite units that only answered to the highest levels of command. The leader, a square-jawed man with a calm but firm presence, saluted me. "General Whitaker, we were ordered to escort you and your mother safely. The orders came from the top." He said this with deliberate clarity, making sure everyone in the room heard. Emily's face drained of all color. Tyler stumbled back, confusion and panic written all over his face. "General?" he whispered, suddenly unsure of himself. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. Emily tried to recover. "Wait, Jason, you were just a soldier, how?" I turned my gaze on her, sharp and unforgiving. "You never cared enough to ask. You left my mother to rot in a kennel and handed power over to a parasite like him. What right do you have to ask anything now?" The leader of the unit stepped forward again. "Sir, we were also instructed to detain anyone suspected of abuse against a military family." He turned toward Tyler. "That includes him." Two men flanked Tyler instantly, gripping his arms before he could react. He screamed, "Wait, you can't arrest me. I work for Emily Prescott. She has powerful friends." The officer didn't flinch. "Your title means nothing to the law. Especially when the person you dared abuse is the mother of a decorated war hero. You'll answer for everything." Emily stepped forward, panicked. "This is a misunderstanding. Tyler didn't mean harm. He was just trying to keep things in order." She glanced at me, attempting a softer tone. "Jason, please. We can talk about this. Maybe things got out of hand, but I never wanted any of this." She looked at my mother. "I swear, I always try to help." I stepped between her and my mother. "Help? You stood by while your assistant mocked her, starved her, beat her. You turned your back on everything you once promised me. You're not the woman I left behind. You're a stranger, and worse than that, you're a coward." Emily's lips trembled, but no sound came out. Tyler was still shouting in the background as he was dragged out of the house. "You'll regret this. Emily, help me. Tell them to stop." She said nothing. I turned to the squad. "Take him to the holding facility. I'll be there later for a full report." "Yes, General," the officer replied. Then they vanished with Tyler, leaving a stunned silence in the room. My mother clutched my arm tightly. "Jason, are you really a general now?" I smiled through the ache in my heart. "I never told you, because I didn't want you to worry. I was promoted during my last year. Everything I did to protect this country, and you." She nodded slowly, tears falling silently. "I never stopped praying for your return." I led her to the living room and sat her gently on the couch. The place was lavish, decorated with marble and crystal, but it all felt hollow. I turned to Emily. "This house, this wealth, it all means nothing if you lost your humanity along the way." She crossed her arms tightly, trying to look strong, but her voice cracked. "I was alone, Jason. You disappeared, no calls, no letters. Everyone said you were dead. I waited. I cried. Then I had to survive. I built something for myself. And in the process, you destroyed someone else." I shot back. "You promised me you'd take care of her like your own mother. Instead, you locked her outside and let your dog of a secretary beat her. Do you even hear yourself?" She remained silent, staring at the floor. I stood up. "This is the last time we speak as husband and wife. Send the divorce papers. I'll sign them. But know this, your name will never be spoken in my home again. Not as a friend. Not as family." Emily's lips tightened. "Fine. You want out? You'll get it. But don't think you can come back into this city and play the hero. You left. I stayed. Everything here is mine now." I stared at her for a long moment. "You can have your titles. Your business. Your lies. I already took back the only thing that matters, my mother." I took Mom's hand and led her out the front door, the sun warm on her face. As we reached the black armored vehicle waiting at the curb, she paused. "Jason, I can't believe you came back. I thought I'd die out there alone." "Never," I whispered. I will never leave you again. The doors closed behind us, sealing off that chapter of our lives. For now. The drive was quiet. My mother leaned her head gently on my shoulder, resting for the first time in years. When we arrived at the military hospital, the staff stood in salute. A private wheeled out a nurse, and the moment she saw my mother's condition, her face darkened. She's severely undernourished, blind in both eyes, and has untreated bruises. We'll begin immediate care. Thank you, I said softly. After they took her inside, the officer from earlier rejoined me. General, Tyler Morgan is in custody. He's been interrogated. We've recovered surveillance footage, financial records, and audio clips. We even found personal letters from Emily authorizing him to keep your mother outside to avoid public embarrassment. I clenched my jaw. Prepare a case file. I want it airtight. We'll take them both down. Understood. I went to the observation room. My mother was asleep in a warm bed, her expression finally peaceful. I couldn't erase the past, but I could fight for her future. That night, I stood on the rooftop of the facility, watching the city skyline. My phone buzzed. A private number. I answered without speaking. Jason, came Emily's voice, shaky. I'm sorry. I really didn't know Tyler was doing all that. I thought you were never coming back. You thought wrong, I replied flatly. Can we talk? Please. Just once, face to face. I paused, then said quietly. You had your chance to protect the person I loved most in this world. You failed. There's nothing left to talk about. Then I ended the call. The next day, I was called into a classified meeting at Central Command. The generals were waiting. My service record was reviewed, and then the Chief of Command spoke. Jason, your work abroad saved thousands. But what you uncovered here, abuse of power, exploitation of military families, that may be your most important battle yet. We're launching an internal task force. You'll lead it. I blinked, caught off guard. Me, sir? Yes, you. We need someone who understands not just war, but betrayal. Someone who knows the cost of silence. I nodded slowly. Then I accept. Good. You have full clearance and authority. Start with Emily Prescott. That night, I went back to my mother's room. She was awake, stronger, smiling faintly. Jason, you've changed. We both have. But now we heal. Outside the hospital, a black car idled, windows tinted. Inside sat Emily, her expression unreadable. She watched as I walked past without noticing her. She gripped the divorce papers in her lap and whispered to herself. He's really gone. And for the first time, Emily Prescott felt powerless. The sun rose over the Capitol like any other morning, but everything had changed. I stood in front of a large glass window on the top floor of the Defense Command building. The city buzzed below me, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. Behind me, the room was filled with silent intensity. The newly formed task force waited for instructions, legal analysts, cyber specialists, field agents. They were the best of the best, hand-picked by the Chief of Command himself. I turned slowly and faced them. We are not just investigating abuse of power. We are dismantling a machine built on lies, silence, and betrayal. Emily Prescott and her network thought no one would ever come back for the forgotten, the discarded, the abused. But I did. And now, we bring justice. A young agent named Clara raised her hand. Sir, preliminary data indicates over a dozen whistleblower complaints tied to Emily's foundation were buried by someone in the city records department. We believe Tyler Morgan may have facilitated it. I nodded. Dig them up. Every complaint, every falsified report. I want them on my desk by noon. Also, I want a full financial trace. If they laundered money or bribed officials, we're going to find it. Yes, sir. The task force scattered into motion. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about everyone who used their power to silence victims, just like my mother. Back at the military hospital, my mother's condition was improving. She was eating real food, sleeping in a bed, and most importantly, smiling again. I sat beside her during lunch. A nurse gently adjusted her fore while Mom held my hand. You've always been stubborn, Jason. She smiled faintly. But I never imagined you'd come back like this. I never imagined I'd find you like that either. My voice cracked slightly. Her smile faded. I used to sit outside every day, waiting. Just in case. People called me crazy, said I was wasting away. But something inside me kept saying my son would come back. You were right, I whispered. She squeezed my hand, then asked, what happens now? Now, I fix everything. For you. For everyone they hurt. That evening, I received a classified file. Clara had discovered something disturbing. Sir, One of the buried whistleblower reports came from a nurse who worked at Emily Prescott's private care facility. The report described elderly patients being denied medicine and food if they didn't sign over property rights or retirement accounts. My hands tightened into fists. Did anyone act on the report? No, sir. It was marked invalid, no follow-up. Then we make it valid now. The nurse's name was Sarah Lynn. I asked Clara to find her. She lived on the edge of the city now, long retired. I paid her a visit the next day. Sarah Lynn lived in a small, quiet apartment filled with books and photos of patients she once cared for. She opened the door slowly, surprised to see two agents in formal uniforms. I introduced myself, and when I explained why I was there, she shook her head bitterly. I tried, she said. I really did. I filed reports, talked to supervisors, even mailed letters. No one cared. One day I found a threatening note on my windshield. After that, I moved and never looked back. We care now, I told her. We're building a case. I need your testimony. She looked at me with tired eyes. Do you think it will make a difference this time? It already has. I pulled out the file of names. Her report matched 8 confirmed victims. We've reopened the cases. Sarah finally nodded. Then I'll testify. But only if you promise to go after all of them. Not just Emily. The lawyers. The doctors. The ones who stayed quiet. I promise. 2 days later, I sat in front of a panel of government prosecutors. I laid out the evidence piece by piece. Financial records showing forced property transfers. Video footage of mistreatment. Audio clips of Tyler bragging about how easy it was to silence old pests. Names. Bank accounts. Transactions. The head prosecutor leaned back. This isn't just corruption. It's organized criminal behavior under the guise of public service. Exactly. And they hurt military families. They disgrace the flag they claim to support. Then they'll pay. We'll push for a public trial. The people deserve to know. Emily Prescott received her subpoena the next morning. She was in her penthouse, seated by a large window, sipping tea. Tyler was gone. Her phone buzzed, and her assistant's voice trembled. Ma'am, you've been summoned to appear before the state prosecution office. They're charging you with obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and financial coercion. Emily froze. Then whispered, Jason, what are you doing? The news exploded by noon. Capital philanthropist Emily Prescott under federal investigation. Head of Prescott Foundation accused of abusing military families. Tyler Morgan arrested on multiple counts. Within hours, sponsors began pulling funding from Emily's businesses. Public figures distanced themselves. Clients canceled contracts. Her empire began to crumble. That night, I received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a flash drive. When I plugged it in, a single video file played. It was Emily, young, radiant, sincere, sitting beside me on our wedding day. She looked into the camera and said, I promise to love you, to honor you, and to protect your mother like my own. The recording ended. It was dated 7 years ago. I stared at the screen, silent. Then I deleted it. The trial date was set. Emily would stand before the Capitol Court in 30 days. Tyler had already turned on her, trading evidence for a reduced sentence. Sarah Lynn and 3 others were prepared to testify. My mother would attend as a witness, legally blind, but more dignified than anyone in that courtroom. And I would speak last. Not as a general. Not as a husband. But as a son. As the chapter closed, I stood once more beside my mother's bed. She held my hand. Jason, you know revenge and justice are not the same thing. I know, Mom. But sometimes, they walk the same road. At least for a while. She smiled faintly, and I kissed her forehead. Sleep well. I'll protect you now. And this time, I won't disappear. The courtroom was already packed before sunrise. Reporters gathered like vultures on the courthouse steps, shouting questions and flashing cameras. Protesters lined the sidewalks holding signs. Some demanded justice for military families. Others defended Emily Prescott, claiming it was all a political attack. Inside the courtroom, the air was tense. Emily arrived flanked by 2 attorneys, dressed in a simple gray suit, her hair pulled back tight. Her usual confidence was absent. She looked smaller than before. Her eyes scanned the room but quickly dropped the moment they met mine. I sat in the front row with my mother beside me. She wore dark sunglasses and a navy coat. Despite her fragile appearance, she sat with quiet strength. The courtroom doors closed, and the trial began. The prosecution wasted no time. They introduced Sarah Lynn first. The retired nurse took the stand and told her story clearly, without emotion. She described how elderly patients were denied food, medicine, and basic dignity unless they signed over assets. When asked who gave the order, she spoke a name that rang through the courtroom like a bullet. Emily Prescott. The defense tried to paint Sarah as bitter, unstable, a disgruntled employee. But the evidence was overwhelming. Financial transfers. Security footage. Phone recordings. Even Tyler's confession. Still, Emily never spoke. Not once. She sat still, face blank. The prosecution continued with more witnesses. A veteran's daughter who lost her inheritance. A whistleblower who'd been fired and blacklisted. A government clerk who admitted he'd been paid to bury reports. By the end of the week, the courtroom had heard from 12 victims. Each one pointed the finger at Emily. Each one told a story of betrayal and greed masked as charity. But something still felt off to me. Too clean. Too convenient. Emily wasn't stupid. Reckless, maybe. But not this sloppy. Someone else had helped cover her tracks. Someone higher. That evening, I returned to command. Clara was waiting for me in the briefing room, her face pale. "Sir, we found something." She handed me a file. A hard copy, old school. We traced the original burial of Sarah Lynn's report. It didn't stop with Emily or even Tyler. It went through a man named Jonathan Creel. He works inside the Department of Internal Affairs. I knew the name. Jonathan Creel was a former intelligence director. Resigned after a scandal that never reached the press. A man who vanished from headlines but never from power. What does he have to do with Emily? Clara hesitated. He's her godfather. He funded the Prescott Foundation in its first year. And we found sealed documents that suggest he was using the foundation as a front to collect dirt on military families, leverage for future blackmail. A chill ran through me. This wasn't about Emily anymore. She wasn't the head of the snake. She was just the shield. We need to bring him in. Clara shook her head. He has friends everywhere. If we move too fast, he'll vanish. We need evidence. Real, hard, public evidence. Then find it. The next morning, Emily took the stand. The courtroom fell silent. She looked different, like someone carrying the weight of too many secrets. Her voice was steady, but softer than I remembered. "I didn't start this to hurt people," she began. "I took over the foundation after Jason left. I was alone, grieving, angry. People told me how to run things, how to protect the name, the legacy. I thought I was being smart. Strategic." She paused. But I let it go too far. I let Tyler handle the decisions because I didn't want to face them. I ignored what I didn't want to see. And when Jason came back, I was ashamed. Her voice cracked for the first time. I didn't think he'd survived. And when I saw him, it was like seeing a ghost that reminded me of everything I had failed. The prosecutor stood. "Miss Prescott, do you deny that you signed orders authorizing the transfer of assets from patients in your facility?" "No." "Do you deny knowing that Tyler Morgan abused General Whitaker's mother?" She looked at me. I knew. I just didn't stop it. Gasps filled the courtroom. That night, I walked alone through the Capitol Memorial Gardens. The moonlight glinted off the bronze plaques of fallen soldiers. I paused at the edge of the war memorial wall. My name was there. Jason Whitaker, missing in action, presumed deceased. I traced my fingers over it. So that was the world they built in my absence. A world where my name became a grave marker and my mother a forgotten soul. Behind me, footsteps approached. It was Emily. "How did you find me?" "You always came here after missions," she said softly. I didn't answer. "Jason, I didn't know about Jonathan. Not at first. But when I did, I was afraid. You still protected him." She looked down. "He said if I kept quiet, he'd make sure the foundation thrived. That we'd have protection. At the cost of everyone else." "I know." She took a deep breath. "I want to make it right." "How?" She reached into her coat and handed me a small recorder. "He came to see me last night. I recorded everything." I took it without a word. "Thank you," I finally said. Emily stepped back, tears in her eyes. "Will you ever forgive me?" I stared at the wall again. Forgiveness is earned, not begged for. Then I walked away. The next day, we played the recording in court. Jonathan Creel's voice was unmistakable. He bragged about manipulating officials, silencing whistleblowers, and shaping public narratives. He called veterans relics. He called military families disposable. He signed his own warrant. Arrest teams moved before the trial ended. By sunset, Jonathan Creel was in custody. Emily received a reduced sentence in exchange for the recording. Tyler's deal was voided. His sentence increased. The Prescott Foundation was dissolved. Government reforms were introduced to protect military families from future exploitation. And my mother? She stood beside me, cane in hand, when the news broke. "Justice," she whispered. "Not revenge. Just justice." I nodded. On the day they removed my name from the war memorial wall, the sun was warm. My mother sat with me on a bench nearby, holding my hand. We watched as a new plaque was unveiled. Jason Whitaker, returned with honor. I didn't speak. There were no words left. Only silence. And peace. 2 months had passed since the trial. The city had changed. Or maybe, I had. Emily Prescott's face no longer appeared on billboards or social media. Her name had become a cautionary tale, studied in law schools and whispered in corporate corridors. Tyler Morgan was serving a 25-year sentence in federal prison with no chance of early release. Jonathan Creel, despite all his connections, had been denied bail and was awaiting trial for high treason and corruption. The task force was now permanent. We had uncovered dozens of smaller foundations linked to similar abuses. The rot had spread deep, but it was being carved out, piece by piece. I had been offered medals, promotions, interviews. I declined them all. My priority remained the same. Mom. She now lived in a quiet home nestled in the green hills on the outskirts of the capital. A private nurse visited daily. Her eyes were showing signs of slow recovery. Her doctors were hopeful. She was eating better, laughing more, and sleeping through the night. I spent every morning by her side, making breakfast, listening to music, reading the paper aloud. It was a rhythm I had never known before. A peace I hadn't earned, but desperately needed. "You look tired," she said one morning, her hand gently patting mine. "I'm okay, Mom. Just adjusting." To being alive again? Her words hung in the air. I smiled faintly. Something like that. That afternoon, Clara called me. "Sir, we received something unusual." "Go on." "There's a man asking to speak with you. He says he knows you from Blackstone." My heart froze. Blackstone was the codename for our most classified mission overseas. The one that had nearly killed me. The one no one was supposed to talk about. "What's his name?" "He says his name is Blake Morrow. He claims he saved your life." I met Blake the next day in a secured room beneath Central Command. He was leaner than I remembered, with a scar running down his jaw and eyes that had seen too much. He stood when I entered, saluted, then dropped it with a quiet chuckle. "Jason. Thought I'd never see you again." "Likewise. Last I heard, you were listed as Kia. They wanted it that way. Safer for everyone. But I've been tracking something. Something big. And I think it ties into what just happened here." I leaned forward. "Go on." He pulled out a tablet and brought up a series of encrypted files. "While you were fighting Emily and Creel here, I was in South Asia tracking arms shipments that disappeared from NATO bases. I followed the money. Guess where it ended up?" I stared at the screen. "Prescott Holdings." "Exactly. The foundation was a cover not just for domestic fraud, but for international laundering. Weapons, biodata, tech patents. Everything." I sat back, the weight of it hitting me hard. They weren't just stealing from families. They were arming someone. Blake nodded. "And I think I know who." He brought up a name. "Lazarus Vale." I blinked. "That's a myth. A ghost story passed around Black Ops." "Not anymore. Lazarus is real. He runs a shadow syndicate, high-level contractors, rogue agents, private armies. The shipments you intercepted 5 years ago? That was him. And Creel? He was funneling everything to Lazarus. You exposed the domestic layer. I want you to help me finish the job." That night, I sat alone in the living room of my mother's house. She was already asleep. The windows were open, letting in a cool summer breeze. The piece I had barely touched was already slipping from my hands. But Blake was right. If Lazarus Vale existed, and if Prescott Holdings had funded his operations, it wasn't over. The war had just shifted theaters. 3 days later, I was reinstated as active duty under a provisional intelligence directive. Only a handful of people knew. The operation was black, buried beneath 6 levels of clearance. Even my task force was kept in the dark. Blake and I worked from an off-grid bunker outside the capital. For weeks, we traced data trails, hacked satellite feeds, decrypted back channels. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Lazarus had moved his base of operations to South America, hidden under the guise of a humanitarian organization called New Dawn International. Their public face was clean: schools, clinics, outreach. But under the surface, they were stockpiling weapons and collecting biometric data. Their next target? Political destabilization in key allied countries. They weren't just after profit. They were after control. And someone in our government was helping them. Meanwhile, Emily was serving her sentence under house arrest in a high-security facility for white-collar criminals. She wasn't allowed contact with media or investors, but she was cooperating with investigators. She had given names, locations, account numbers. She was no hero, but she was useful. One day, she requested a meeting. I agreed. When I entered the room, she stood quietly by the window. "You really are different now," she said. "So are you." She turned to me. "They're going to kill you, Jason. Lazarus doesn't forgive loose ends. And if you go after him, he'll come for your mother. For anyone close to you." "I know." She hesitated. I wasn't lying about the baby. My jaw tightened. "He's gone. I lost him a month after the trial. Stress. My body couldn't take it." I closed my eyes for a second. Then nodded. "I'm sorry." She stepped closer. "Promise me one thing. When you take him down, don't become him." I opened my eyes and met hers. "I won't." Then she said the one thing I never expected to hear. "Tell your mother. I'm sorry." Back in the bunker, Blake and I prepared for deployment. We had coordinates, intel drops, names. The op would take place in under 72 hours. If we succeeded, we'd dismantle the last leg of the Prescott-Creel network. If we failed, we wouldn't come back. The night before the mission, I returned to my mother's home. She was waiting, seated in the garden with a blanket over her lap. The stars above us blinked silently. "You're leaving again, aren't you?" "Yes." "Will you come back?" I knelt in front of her and took her hands. "I always do." She didn't cry. She only nodded. "Then go do what you were born to do." As I boarded the jet at a private airstrip, my comm buzzed. Clara's voice came through, low and urgent. "Sir, we just intercepted chatter. Lazarus knows you're coming." I looked at Blake. "Let him know we're already there." The jungle heat pressed down like a weight. Every breath tasted of soil and sweat. Blake and I moved through the dense canopy, armed with silenced rifles and nanotech comms. Our target was hidden beneath the surface of the Amazon basin, a subterranean fortress masked by false humanitarian outposts and a network of electromagnetic scramblers. Satellite imagery had failed. Only boots on the ground would work now. We reached the ridge overlooking the facility just past midnight. It didn't look like much, rows of tents, supply trucks, medical stations. But the heat signatures told a different story. Beneath that innocent facade, dozens of armed guards patrolled steel corridors tunneled into the earth. Blake adjusted his earpiece. "Infiltration route confirmed. Thermal scans show a side access tunnel 20 meters east. Minimal surveillance." I nodded. "Let's move." We slipped down the ridge in silence. This wasn't just another mission. This was the endgame. If we succeeded, we'd cripple Lazarus Vale's entire network. If we failed, there would be no recovery. We entered the facility through the side tunnel, disabling the first two guards with tranquilizers. Blake hacked the internal security panel while I set the disruptor charge on the surveillance array. As soon as the signal jam began, we moved fast. Inside, the place was cold steel and humming lights. The smell of metal and fuel filled the corridors. We passed storage rooms packed with weapons, vials labeled with genetic codes, and encrypted terminals glowing faintly in the dark. "What the hell is this?" I muttered. Blake tapped one of the vials. "This isn't just warfare. They're harvesting DNA. Biometric data from military families. Experimental gene editing tech. They're building leverage." I scanned the labels. Some names I recognized. Soldiers. Families. Even children. "Monsters," I said. "No," Blake replied grimly. "Calculators. Lazarus doesn't want to destroy nations. He wants to own them." We reached the command center just as the alarm tripped. Someone had noticed the silence on the outer perimeter. 30 seconds, Blake warned. "Whatever we're going to do, it has to be now." I located the server core and jammed the decryptor in. Data flooded the drive, transaction records, blackmail footage, top-secret communications between Lazarus and government officials from 3 continents. We'd have proof. If we made it out alive. Then the door exploded behind us. They came in waves. Trained mercenaries in full tactical gear. We returned fire from behind overturned consoles, each second pushing us closer to being overrun. "Hallway east," Blake shouted. "Fall back." We retreated down the service corridor, smoke trailing behind us, sirens blaring in red pulses. I hit the comm. Extraction, now. Coordinates Delta Tango 17. Confirmed, Clara's voice came through. ETA 5 minutes. You'll need to reach the north clearing. We ran. In the clearing, the chopper hovered low, blades cutting through the night. We emerged from the jungle just as 2 more guards appeared behind us. Blake took one out. The second raised his rifle. Then dropped. A single shot echoed from the ridge. I turned. It was Emily. She lowered the sniper rifle with shaking hands, her face pale, her eyes unreadable. I didn't ask how she'd gotten there. I didn't care. She ran down the hill, breath ragged. You idiot, she said. I told you they'd come for you. Blake dragged me into the helicopter. We're out of time. I grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her in with us. The chopper lifted as bullets cracked through the trees. We were airborne. Back in Capital Airspace, we handed over the drive. The data brought down 5 foreign officials, 2 intelligence directors, and 4 heads of multinational corporations. It exposed decades of covert manipulation, exploitation of military bloodlines, and illegal biological research. Lazarus Vale disappeared. Vanished before the final assault, leaving behind a decoy body and a cold trail. He had anticipated failure. But he'd lost his network. He'd lost his funding. He'd lost his shield. A month later, I stood on the Senate floor. Not in uniform. Not as a general. Just as a son. I testified for 4 hours before a bipartisan commission. I told them about my mother. About the foundation. About the betrayal. And about the cost of silence. Legislation passed within weeks. A new division was created, Guardian Watch, to oversee and protect military families from corporate exploitation and political abuse. For the first time in decades, real accountability began to take root. Emily was granted clemency. Her sentence commuted, her assets seized, her reputation forever scarred. But she kept one thing, freedom. She moved quietly to the mountains, out of the public eye. Some hated her. Some forgave her. I did neither. But I visited her once. She opened the door without a word. We sat on the porch. Said little. Until she finally asked. If I hadn't stepped in, would you have died? I didn't answer. Because we both already knew. She had saved me. Just once. And maybe, that was enough. Blake left for a new mission overseas. Disappeared like a ghost, no forwarding address. Just a short note. Next time we meet, I owe you a drink. I smiled when I read it. Some debts never get collected. Mom's eyesight had stabilized. She still couldn't see clearly, but she could recognize shapes. She could walk alone again. She'd even started tending a small garden in the back. I built her a bench. Every morning, she sat on it with her tea, humming the lullaby she used to sing when I was a child. And every morning, I sat beside her. Not as a general. Not as a soldier. But as a son. 3 months had passed since the fall of the Prescott Foundation. On the surface, life had returned to normal. The city buzzed with politics and business as usual. Veterans received better care. Military families received new protections. My mother's name, once erased from the system, was now on official records as a survivor of institutional abuse. But peace, real peace, never comes without a price. And sometimes, it comes late. I was walking through the park one afternoon, not far from the Capitol Memorial Garden, when a child bumped into me. Sorry, mister. He ran off before I could respond. Just a kid. But when I looked down, I noticed something strange in my coat pocket. A note. No envelope. No signature. Just 2 words in handwriting I hadn't seen since the war. Miss me? My blood froze. Back in my office at Guardian Watch, I scanned the note for fingerprints, DNA, trace elements. The results came back blank. No residue. No print. No trace. Only one man could leave no trail. Lazarus Vale. He was alive. Clara burst into my office the next day. Sir, you need to see this. She laid out a map, 6 cities across 3 continents, each one hit by coordinated cyber attacks over the past 48 hours. Government agencies, military servers, and genetic archives. Not theft. Deletion. Complete erasure of data tied to the Lazarus network. He's burning his footprints, Clara said. Scrubbing the world clean of his past. And he's warning us, I said quietly. Letting me know he's still watching. She looked nervous. What do we do? I looked at her, steady. We wait. He'll slip. When he does, we'll be there. A week later, I found myself back in the hills at my mother's house. It was early evening. The sky was gold, the wind soft. She was planting flowers, slowly, carefully, while humming an old melody. "You're restless," she said without turning. I smiled faintly. "You always know. You can't chase shadows forever, Jason." I sat beside her. "He left a note." She paused. "The man you talked about. The one behind it all?" I nodded. And nothing. Just a reminder." She brushed the soil from her fingers. "Then let it be a reminder. Not a chain." Later that night, I opened a sealed envelope Blake had left behind. I'd kept it untouched until now. Inside was a flash drive. The screen lit up with Blake's face. "If you're watching this, then I'm probably gone. Or off the grid too deep to return." He leaned forward, voice serious. "Lazarus Vale isn't one man. He's a belief. A system. A way of thinking that power is only safe in the hands of the few. You didn't just fight a man, Jason. You fought an idea. And the only way to truly win," he paused, "is to replace it with something better." The screen went black. In the months that followed, Guardian Watch expanded to 21 countries. We exposed corrupt contracts, saved hundreds of families, shut down front organizations tied to black networks. We trained survivors to become leaders, recruited whistleblowers, and made sure people like my mother were never silenced again. Emily sent a letter once. No return address. Inside was a photo of the child she'd lost, printed from an old ultrasound. On the back, she'd written, "I hope you're finally free." I burned it. Not out of hate, but because some things aren't meant to be held onto forever. One spring morning, I took my mother to a new memorial unveiled at the Capitol. It was simple, no marble, no grandeur. Just a steel wall etched with names. The forgotten. Those who had been ignored, abandoned, erased. My mother touched her name, now displayed with dignity. "I never thought I'd live to see this," she whispered. "You didn't live through it," I said gently. "You endured it. That's strength." She smiled. "And what about you, Jason? What will your name say one day?" I looked out over the wall, the sunlight casting long shadows. "Maybe nothing," I said. "Maybe I don't need it to." That night, I stood alone on the rooftop of Guardian Watch headquarters. The wind rustled softly, carrying the faint sound of the city below. I felt it then. A presence. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. "You're late," I said. A voice replied, low and dry. "Had to make sure you still knew how to wait." Lazarus Vale. He stepped out of the shadows, wearing a dark coat, his hands empty. "No guns?" I asked. He smirked. "Why bother? If I wanted you dead, we wouldn't be talking." "What do you want?" "To see the man who ruined everything," he said. "To see what he built in its place." I said nothing. He walked to the edge and looked over the city. "You won, Jason. Enjoy it. But remember this, systems rot. People forget. And when they do, I'll be back." I stepped beside him. "And when you do, I won't be waiting alone." He chuckled softly, then stepped backward into the darkness. Gone. I returned to my mother's house the next day. The garden was blooming. The bench was warm. She sat with her tea. "Was it him?" she asked. I nodded. "And?" "I let him go." She looked at me. "You sure that was wise?" "No," I said. "But it was right. The world wasn't perfect. It never would be. But we had pushed back the dark. And in that moment, under a quiet sun, surrounded by the flowers my mother had planted, that was enough."